Welcome to the JCPS MTSS Modes of Instruction and Student Practice Toolkit training on the high yield practice of space versus mass. I am Sarah Adams, MTSS Engagement Resource Teacher with Zone 1.
Hi, I'm Matt Traskus, MTSS Engagement Resource Teacher with the High School Zone. Please take a moment to type in the case-sensitive bit.ly into your web browser. This will allow you access to the slide deck, activities, and all resources found throughout this presentation.
Here you see components of multi-tiered systems of support, also known as MTSS. As you can see, the multiple levels of support which MTSS provides for all learners easily aligns with our district's 6 systems for students. MTSS addresses academic, social, emotional, and behavioral development. It focuses on overall school improvement that is sustainable. This presentation encompasses several components, but most notably teacher support through resources that can be used to accelerate student learning during instruction, as well as teacher professional development. This concept map shows a visual of the departments in JCPS within MTSS. The MTSS Academic Department provides teachers with Tier 2 and Tier 3 intervention and academic support. This department is led by Donna Lawson. The MTSS Behavior Department, led by Sandra Hensel, supports schools in implementing school-wide behavior systems and frameworks, which include PBIS and restorative practices. The goal of our department, the MTSS Engagement Department, is to increase student achievement by equipping teachers with high-yield pedagogical practices to maximize student engagement. The MTSS Engagement Department is led by Dr. Naomi Brahim. The point of contact for each department is located in the concept map. 6 MTSS toolkits were created to provide resources for Tier 1 instructional practices to increase student engagement and reduce student behaviors. Here are the 6 MTSS toolkits. The website is linked on the image. Let's start with the definition of modes of instruction and student practice. Teachers need to be well-versed and fluent in implementing various modes of instruction. This includes providing a variety of opportunities in which students can practice skills being introduced in the lesson. Once students have acquired a basic knowledge and skill within any lesson, there is a critical need to supply opportunities for successful practice. However, there are keys to effective use and delivery of practice. These practice strategies enhance learning and improve the student's prognosis for future performance. The success criteria for this high-yield practice is when the teacher provides different opportunities of space versus mass with multiple short tasks over a period of time rather than long practice sessions to ensure student mastery. Now let's look at the definition of the high-yield practice, space versus mass. In space versus mass, students should have frequent, deliberate practice opportunities of correct academic responses until mastery is met. These practice sessions should be relatively short in duration and occur over a long period of time, rather than long practice sessions over a short period of time. In this session, we will examine space versus mass practice and determine ways these modes can assist students in the learning process. As we do this, you will be able to reflect and plan for methods of implementing this mode of practice in your classroom. In this short 4-minute video, professors discuss the psychology and application of the space versus mass practice. You may wish to take notes during the video.
When we think about learning, we can think about the amount that you can learn, But then there's also the quality of how well you learn something and also how long you can remember it, that we call that retention. There's some evidence to suggest that spacing out studying as well as retrieval practices can actually help you learn it in a way that allows you to transfer it to other situations, which is a measure of how well you learned it.
Spaced retrieval is based on the idea that we need to create opportunities for our mind, to forget. When we study, we strengthen certain connections, and we get to a certain point in which maybe we get saturated by studying what we are doing. So we need to take a break. We need to allow the mind to relax so that then we can come back and force our mind to go back and try to retrieve the ideas that we were struggling with or that we were trying to memorize.
Instead of accumulating this knowledge all at once, what you're trying to do is you're trying to leave some period of time before you actually trying to retrieve knowledge. Practice sort of freshens us up, right? We learn a particular skill and we make sure that this deliberately we keep it fresh, right? By actively trying to retrieve it over a longer period of time as opposed to using it within a short period of time and then putting it aside.
You want to create opportunities for your mind to forget a little bit so that when you can come back and then you force your mind again to recover all those ideas and bring them to the forefront again.
As a freshman in college, I was taking a biology class and it was very challenging and I just wanted to get through the semester. I just wanted to get an A and be done with it. But as I continued throughout my college career, I realized that these ideas and these topics kept coming up over and over again. And I had to relearn what I hadn't learned well the first time. One thing that's very important is to realize that the things that you're learning are going to build on each other. And if you learn it right the first time, it's going to help you very much as you continue throughout your college career and throughout your career after college.
Research in cognitive psychology on learning and memory has taught us this very basic principle about rehearsal, that if you rehearse things over and over and over again in a short period of time, it's very inefficient. You will learn, but it takes you a long time and you tend to forget that information very quickly.
The idea is that you need to learn to monitor also how much time you need to invest, but that you recognize that you need to invest time maybe on a daily basis to go over core ideas in your different subjects.
You want to go back maybe in 2 or 3 days and review the information. And then you space it out a little bit further and go back another week after that and review the information. And then a month after that and review the information. If you do that, we call that spaced retrieval. You will learn the information more quickly and more efficiently, and you'll remember it for a lot longer. So when you get to that final exam, you're not going to have to go back and relearn all the information from the beginning of the class. It's still there, and you can do a much better job of just reviewing it quickly and having it available when you get to that final.
This mode of student practice is not new. For more information on this learning, we have linked an article from Stellar Learning. As highlighted in the video, retrieval practices and spacing out content give students time to apply what they have learned to other situations. By spacing out the content and cycling back, student retrieval is more efficient and they have a greater retention time.
We are now going to try mass practice. For this activity, please have a pencil and paper ready. As a challenge, you'll have 20 seconds to memorize the words on the following list. You will then be asked to write down as many of the words as you can remember. Begin writing down the words. You may want to pause the video here for a moment, but please, for no more than 1 minute. How did this style of learning make you feel? Take a moment to reflect on your students. How could you have succeeded if you were allowed to memorize these in a different way? Now, we are going to complete the same activity using spaced practice. This will allow us to see how chunking or spacing the amount of content given to students and repeating the old information will increase retention. Let's try it. Notice that there are 4 words to memorize. Most students can retain this information. By asking students to repeat the 4 words and then the 4 new ones, retention is increased for the original 4 and likely the next 4 as well. Here the teacher repeats the process and adds another set of words. By chunking and repeating the information, there's a greater chance for student retention of the material. In order to create a successful spaced practice, you must first start with a manageable amount of new material. Next, using different forms of repetition, such as call and response, or other participation techniques to recall old material and connect it to that newer material. Finally, repeat the entire process until all information has been presented in order to help increase student retention. Research backs up this assumption. With an effect size of 0.60, spaced versus mass practice is more effective than many teaching practices. Hattie states that this deliberate practice is more effective when spaced or extended over a time span with not too much lapse in time between practice sessions. If students need more explicit scaffolds or are reluctant learners, spaced practice may be better suited for your classroom. Mass practice has its place in the classroom, however. It is dependent on the task at hand. For students that are motivated to complete the task and find success, there is little fatigue in doing the activity over and over again. Think about riding your bike. You tried again and again to get it right. You didn't space out the sessions because you were motivated to become successful. Now take time for this final reflection. Consider your classroom and how you are pacing instruction for your students. Digging deeper, do you give students ample time to practice, or do you move forward to the next topic on the curriculum map? In any classroom, the teacher should be aware of certain considerations regarding the environment or learning community that they are trying to help create. Knowing the backgrounds or cultural norms for students within the classroom will lead to more engaging and effective instructional practice. This culturally responsive approach should be utilized to reach as many students as possible in the classroom. In classrooms where ECE students are present, using space versus mass, teachers should integrate the scaffolded supports that are necessary to increase student practice, along with metacognitive strategies that allow for students to become more fluent in that specific skill so they can correctly use that skill in future problem solving. Opportunities for practice are needed for ECE students to become fluent in most given skills. When considering project-based learning, teachers should align instructional strategies to student learning needs. It is important to identify instructional approaches that will support students in understanding foundational knowledge related to the learning outcomes. Discover what instructional approaches support students in connecting and contrasting ideas, as well as which ones support students in applying the ideas and learning outcomes to project expectations. They also need to ensure that there is time enough for independent practice, which is again critical for retention. In an upcoming PLC, challenge yourself and your cohort to incorporate space versus mass practices into your instruction. In order to help you with this process, we have provided the plan, do, study, ACT tool on this slide. Thank you for joining us to learn more about spaced versus massed practice. For more information about MTSS toolkits and other high-yield practices, please visit our website.